So, number one, describe the structure of gas exchange system. Number two, describe the distribution and also the function. Distribution means the location and the function of certain tissues, cells, and capillaries in the gas exchange system. So what are the tissues you can find in trachea, bronchus, bronchiole, alveoli? What are the cells? What about the capillaries? Okay, where can you find them? It means distribution. Then number three, recognize the tissue, cells, and capillaries. That means if I give you a slide or a micrograph of trachea, bronchus, bronchiole, and the lungs, you need to be able to identify the different tissues, different cells, the capillaries in the slide as well as in the micrograph. So it's all about the structure. And then for each of the structure, you need to be able to tell me what is their function. What is its function? Okay. Lastly, you need to recognize as well as to draw plan drawings of trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, and alveoli. Right? Plan drawing means you outline the tissue layers. Okay. So therefore today I'm going to spend a little bit of time for you to learn how to identify the cells and tissues in different parts of the airways. Different parts of the airways. Okay. Airways means the pathway where the air will travel into the lung and out of the lung, right? Okay. So, okay. So now we want to look at the pathway that the air will go through before it enters our alveoli. So what are the parts that the air will pass through that we call them as the airways? All right. Airways. Airways means the pathway that the air will flow in our gas exchange system. Oh wait, where's my airway? Airway A. Okay, airways. So it will start from the nose or mouth, right? Start from our nose or mouth. As we breathe in, the air will pass through the pharynx. Okay, pharynx, right? Usually we say our throat, right? Our throat, but actually the scientific name is pharynx. So from the nose and from the mouth, it goes to the pharynx. All right, pharynx is here. Then it goes into the trachea. So this is the trachea. Okay. Then it branches into two bronchi. One bronchus, two bronchi. Okay, bronchus. B-R-O-N-C-H-U-S. One bronchus, many bronchi. Okay, and then continue to branch to many smaller tubes called bronchioles, and finally end up in many small bags, many tiny bags, which we call alveoli. So again, one alveolus, okay, many alveoli. Right. So this is where the air will travel in and out. So this is a diagram where you need to label it and submit it together with the plan diagram or plan drawing. Okay, you will come across this term called plan drawing as well as plan diagram. They are the same. Plan drawing and plan diagram, they are the same. Okay, plan drawing or plan diagram means you outline the tissue layers. You outline the tissue. So you do not draw any cells because you only want to show the tissue. So that is for plan drawing. Okay, so let's go through the different parts of our airways. So we have got, this is a nose. Behind the nose, there's a huge space, which is called the nasal cavity. Okay, and then you see here the common tube between the air that comes in from the nose and the air that comes in from the mouth. So this common pathway, where both of them join is called the pharynx. So sometimes we call it our throat. So it's pharynx. Okay. And then after that, you can see that this common pathway will then be divided into the tube in front and the tube behind. So the tube in front is for our air to go to the lungs, whereas the tube behind is for the food to be swallowed as well as water to be swallowed. Okay, so therefore, there's a special flap here which we call it the epiglottis. Epiglottis. Okay, there's a special flap here which when we swallow, it will actually cover this opening so that the food will go to the this tube behind, which is called the esophagus. Okay, esophagus. So if the epiglottis, this flap is open, then as we breathe in, the air will go to the tube in front. So the tube in front here, the opening here is called the glottis. Okay, this space here is called glottis. It will be covered by epiglottis when we swallow. Okay, so let's look at where will the air travel. So after the glottis, right, the glottis, which is the opening to our airways, to the lung, it will pass through this structure here, which is called the larynx. Okay, larynx have got another word. Do you know what is another name for larynx? You type, please type. Do you know what's another name for larynx? Yes, Crystal, very good. So another name for larynx is our voice box. Okay, voice box. Okay, so larynx is also our voice box, right? So usually you look at, usually for male, right, their larynx is more protruding than female. So that could be a reason why their voice is more like a deeper tone than female, correct? Okay, the larynx. Okay, so after larynx, the air will continue to travel to the trachea. So you look at the trachea, right? When you look at trachea here, they've got special rings around it. Can you see that? The special ring around it, one like segmented like that. So later on, you'll learn why is it segmented, okay? And then after that, you'll branch to two bronchi. So here I label bronchus when I point to one of the two branches. So after bronchus, it will branch into smaller bronchiole, okay? After that, it will end up in tiny little sac, SAC, sac or bag, which is the alveolus, which is not labeled here because cannot see alveolus here. Okay, and then you can see that the entire lung, we have got two lungs, okay, the left and right lung, okay, the right and left lung. The entire lung is just like our heart, where it is actually surrounded by, again, two layers of very thin tissue. We call them pleural membrane, okay? And then the pleural membrane, the two pleural membrane will sandwich in the center an empty space, which is called the pleural cavity. And also the pleural cavity will also be filled with liquid. So that will also help to reduce resistance, friction. It will help to reduce the friction as we breathe in and breathe out. So as the lung expand, it will be touching our rib cage, okay? So that this pleural fluid will reduce the friction between our lung as well as the rib cage as we breathe in.
I think it's better if you turn off your video. You're lagging a little bit.
Okay, from where do I lag?
Little bit here, yeah, but you can just continue.
Can hear lah. Okay.
Yeah. Can you start from like the start of something to do with pleural cavity, pleural membrane?
Can, sure. I will start from there, okay? All right. So you see, when you learn the heart, right, you learn that the most outside layer of the heart, you got this called pericardium, remember? Perimeter, cardium, right? So the pericardium, inside the pericardium got pericardial fluid. So lung also same thing. It also has got two layers of membrane. This membrane here is actually very thin layer of tissue, so which is called the pleural membrane. Okay, so inside the space is called pleural cavity, is filled with fluid. So that will also help to reduce the friction between the lung and the surrounding tissue, for example, the rib cage, as well as the intercostal muscle, the muscle between the rib cage. Okay, it's called the intercostal muscle. Do you have it here? Yes, intercostal muscle. So that will reduce the friction between the lungs and the surrounding tissue as we breathe in and breathe out. Because when we breathe in, the lung is going to expand, and therefore the surface of the lung is going to touch the surrounding tissue. So by having this pleural membrane and pleural cavity, it's going to reduce the friction. Okay, so that's wonderful about this. And then at the base, you can see there's a diaphragm. So diaphragm is actually a muscular tissue, okay, which will help us to breathe in and breathe out. Okay, so that's the basic structure on the left side. So what is to do with the color? The color is just for you to able to follow very quickly, because I alternate between the purple color or the magenta color and the blue color, so it's easy for you to follow, so you won't miss anything when you label those structures in your notes. Okay, now on the right side, I have drawn 3 different plan drawings. The first one on top is for the trachea, the second one is for the bronchus, and the third one is for the bronchiole. Okay, so I'm going to bring you through all these 3 plan drawings now so that you can learn it easily. So what I've done is that, you see, I've used color. I've used color to color the tissue that is similar among all the 3 plan drawings, so that you know when you learn something, you don't have to learn individually. You learn the common structure that they have. And then for each of them, what is the special structure that the rest of the tube do not have? Okay, so we'll start from trachea first. Okay, now for all the 3 tubes, all of them, because it's a tube, there will be an empty space in the center, which we call it as the lumen. So you label all the empty space in the center as the lumen. Okay, so that's the first thing, all of them got. Then after that, the tissue that faces the lumen, all of them, the tissue, all of them are called the epithelium. So this tissue is called epithelium. So this is a spelling for epithelium. Why? Epi means on the surface of the body facing the external environment, because the air is external environment. So that's why this tissue is called the epithelium. Okay, and then the epithelial cell is ciliated, means got cilia. So that's why it's called ciliated epithelium. That means if I draw this as the epithelial cell, then it's got cilia on it. Okay, ciliated, it's got cilia on it. So that's why it's called ciliated epithelium. Okay, cilia. So you see, I've drawn 2 different shape of epithelial cell, because the shape of the cell will become smaller and smaller as the tube becomes smaller and smaller. So from trachea to bronchus, bronchus to bronchiole, the tube is becoming smaller and smaller. Therefore, I will expect that the height of the cell will also become shorter and shorter. So in the trachea, you will find this height, this shape of the cell, which is called columnar. Okay, columnar, right? Because it is tall, so it's called columnar. Whereas when it comes to bronchiole, it becomes cuboidal. Cuboidal. Okay, cuboidal. All right. And then, of course, finally, when it comes to the alveolus, alveolus will no longer have got cilia, because the function of alveolus is for gaseous exchange. So alveolus, the wall is so thin that the cell that form the wall, the epithelial cell that form the wall, is very flat. Can you tell me what is the shape? What is the name for the shape of this cell? Squamous. Yes, very good, Myra. 2 marks for Myra. Where is Myra? Here, okay. Plus 2 marks. Okay. Okay, so therefore you have seen that now there are only 3 different possible shape of epithelial cell, which is number 1, columnar, number 2, cuboidal, number 3, squamous. So there are only 3 possible shape. Squamous. Okay, so in our gaseous exchange system in the airways, the larger airways are made up of ciliated columnar epithelial cell. Okay, larger airways is made up of ciliated columnar epithelial cell. Then you go to a middle-sized airways, it will be made up of ciliated cuboidal epithelial cell. Then in alveolus, it will be made up of squamous epithelial cell without cilia. Okay, because it doesn't need cilia anymore. The main function in alveolus is gaseous exchange. So you want to reduce the distance for the air to travel, right, between the alveolar airspace as well as the blood vessel. So there'll be blood vessel in the wall of the alveolus, which you'll learn later on. So that's why you don't want to have got all the cilia. It's not necessary. Okay, so therefore, this squamous epithelial cell in the alveolus is considered as botak head. Understand botak head? Means no hair. Botak, okay, no hair. Am I recording? Yes, I'm. Okay, right. Now let's continue. I'm going very slowly so you can follow. Okay.
Wait,
now
sorry to interrupt. So
the next thing is you see the empty space. I don't wanna. Can you see this purple color structure here, or the magenta color here, which is only found in the trachea and the bronchus, and you don't find it in bronchiole, right? This is a very special structure for you to be able to identify trachea as well as bronchus, for you to distinguish between trachea, bronchus, and bronchiole. Now, this magenta or purple color structure, right, in the trachea is called the C-shaped cartilage or C-shaped cartilage ring. Okay, so you can see there's C-shape, right? Okay, because it's not a complete ring, it's open here, it's not connected here. So it's called C-shaped cartilage. Okay, now cartilage is a soft bone. The soft bone you can find in your nose, okay, in your nose, your ear, all right, it's slightly flexible one. Okay, it's a soft bone, so it's called cartilage. Okay, so trachea has got a C-shaped cartilage, and you can see I label here anterior. That means which part of the cartilage is open is actually in the posterior side of our body. So anterior means your front, okay? You're moving towards the front one. So anterior is totally covered by the cartilage. The anterior of trachea is totally covered by cartilage. The posterior is the one that's open. Now, you know that every structure that we have, there's a function there. So why is it covered in front? Is because we move forward. So when we move forward, we need to have got this cartilage ring to actually protect the trachea, to prevent it from collapsing. Okay, so this cartilage is to ensure that the lumen of the trachea is always open so that the air can easily flow in and out during our breathing without obstruction. So therefore, all the tissues of the trachea will be held by the cartilage to ensure that the lumen is always open. Okay, and then you see behind here, you got this red color structure, right? This red color structure is called the smooth muscle. Smooth muscle is the name of the tissue. Okay, now this smooth muscle is arranged in 2 ways. This smooth muscle, it can be arranged longitudinally. That means to say that if this is the tube, let me draw it again. So if this is the trachea, right? I draw it this way so you, okay, this is our tube trachea, okay? So if you say that the smooth muscle is arranged longitudinally, means it's arranged in line with the length of the tube. right? So this is the smooth muscle, like this. So this is a smooth muscle, which we call it as longitudinal smooth muscle. We also got smooth muscle that arranged in line with the transverse section. That means it's arranged this way. Okay, it's arranged this way. So this is a transverse smooth muscle. This is a longitudinal smooth muscle. This is the transverse smooth muscle. So therefore, when you see a section through the trachea like this, that means section means you make a very thin, section. Now, if you make a transverse section is also cross section. That means you make a very thin layer from the trachea, you will be able to see this transverse smooth muscle, the entire length of it. So you can see the entire length of smooth muscle on your transverse section of your specimen because you're cutting along the length of this cell. So you can see the entire length of the cell here. But for longitudinal section, when you're cutting it, making the slide, so for example, you are making the slide, so you make a section like this, right? You will not be able to see the length of the cell. You will see the cell like it's round, okay, and then it's got nucleus in the center like this, but it's still smooth muscle cell. So therefore, you might be able to see the smooth muscle cell like this. Okay, that means it's longitudinal. Sorry, this is transverse, okay? Or you can see it this way. That means arranged longitudinally. Okay, so this smooth muscle, you can see two types of arrangement of the cell. It's either longitudinal or transverse. Okay, longitudinal means this one, or transverse arrangement. Transverse means its arrangement is aligned with the transverse section of the specimen. Okay, all right, so smooth muscle, no, so what is the function of the smooth muscle here? The smooth muscle is supposed to be able to contract and relax, right? All muscles are supposed to be able to contract and also to relax. So the smooth muscle here is to help. So when it contracts, right, both ways, when the longitudinal smooth muscle contract is going to make the tube shorter. Okay, so when it contracts, the smooth muscle cell will become shorter, right? It will become shorter and fatter. So let me draw it shorter and fatter. So when it contracts, it becomes shorter and fatter. Okay, so that means the tube, the trachea will become shorter. And then when this muscle cell contract, the diameter of the tube also becomes smaller. Okay, so overall, when both the transverse and longitudinal smooth muscle contract, is going to make the tube shorter as well as the diameter smaller. So this will actually create, it's going to create a high pressure to push the things out from our airways. So therefore, when you cough, the smooth muscle is going to contract because something is trapped inside your airways. You try to cough to create a high pressure to squeeze or to push something out from the airway. So that is the function of the smooth muscle. Okay, it will contract to push the air in the lumen in order to push out anything that's obstructing the airways. Okay, so that is the function of the smooth muscle. And smooth muscle can be found not only in the trachea, it can be found in the bronchus and bronchiole as well. But it's not being drawn here because it's very tiny, very thin layer in the bronchus and bronchiole. But I will show you later on when I show you the micrograph of trachea, bronchus, and bronchiole. Okay, so that means for all three of them, they contain smooth muscle. All three of them contain smooth muscle. Okay, now in the bronchus, you see the purple color structure is no longer C-shaped, is considered as fragmented. Okay, fragmented cartilage. Fragmented cartilage means it's not a complete C-shaped ring, but it has got small pieces, so it's called fragmented cartilage. Why? Because bronchus is smaller than trachea. So it cannot put the entire ring here. So it got small fragments of cartilage. Again, cartilage is also to provide support and ensure that the lumen of the bronchus is always open. So the airway is always open. So that's the function of cartilage, to ensure that the lumen is always open. Okay. So all three has got smooth muscle. And then the other thing is, you see the white color region, all of them got the white color region. So the white color region is the connective tissue. You can find connective tissue in all organs and structures, right? Like the blood vessels, you can find the connective tissue in tunica externa. So here in the white color region, you can find connective tissues. That means you can find elastic fiber, right? Connective tissue. In this case here, you will be able to find elastic fiber. Okay, and a lot of them you can find collagen. Okay, collagen fiber, right? And in this case here, you can also find not connective tissue lah. Okay, I think enough. Okay, connective tissue. You will also be able to find number 2, smooth muscle. I don't want to put smooth muscle as connective tissue because smooth muscle is a standalone tissue. So it's a separate tissue. Okay, but you can find the smooth muscle in the white color space. I'll show you later on where you can find it. Okay, so I lump everything together. All the three will contain smooth muscle. All the three will contain elastic fiber. So remember, smooth muscle and elastic fiber. All of them will have smooth muscle and elastic fiber in the white color region. Okay, for this one, you will also find in the white color regions, which I didn't label here. So the white color region here, you will also find smooth muscle and elastic fiber. Okay, apart from this smooth muscle here. So I've labeled connective tissue, right? So this is where you can find the smooth muscle and elastic fiber. Okay, smooth muscle and elastic fiber. All right. Now there's one more thing I didn't mention. Can you see this black color circle here? Can you see this black color circle here? This black color circle. So this black color circle is labeled here as mucus secreting gland. Mucus secreting gland means is a gland. Okay, a gland is a gland that secrete. A gland is a structure in our body that secretes substances. So in this case, it secretes mucus. So therefore, that our airways, right, will always be covered by a layer of mucus at the wall there. Okay, a cover with a layer of mucus. This mucus function is very sticky. It's very sticky, so it's supposed to trap. It's supposed to trap all the air particles when we breathe in. Okay, so when we breathe in the air, can you tell me what are the air particles you can find in the air when you breathe in? Dust, correct. Bacteria, dust, yes. Very good. So when you breathe in, the dust, so we have got dust particle, right? Hello? Dust particle. Dust, okay. We have got bacteria. We have got viruses. Maybe we have got pollen, okay? Pollen, and etc. So we don't want all these materials to go into our alveoli, because bacteria and viruses, if we go into alveoli and stay there, it will infect our cells, right? So pollen may cause allergy. So we don't want all these air particles. They are all considered as air particles. Air particles. We don't want them to enter our airways. So the moment it enters our airways, our mucus, which is sticky like glue, is going to cause all these air particles to stick to it. And after that, we have to remove it, isn't it? Or else, every day as we breathe, right, all these things will start to accumulate in our airways. So we have to sweep it out, like sweep the dust out from your house. So therefore, we have got the cilia. right? That's why we have got ciliated cells, ciliated epithelial cell. So this cilia function is like our sweep, right? It's supposed to, our broom, not sweep, our broom, okay? Okay, it's like our broom, okay? It was supposed to sweep, okay? It's supposed to sweep the mucus, It will sweep the mucus, and whatever that's trapped inside the mucus, the air particles trapped in the mucus will be swept upwards, okay? From the bronchiole to bronchus to trachea, and after that it goes to our pharynx. And then in a pharynx, you can decide what you're going to do with these air particles. So, Lowenthal, what are you going to do with this mucus that goes to your pharynx?
Gonna go down into the digestive tract.
Oh, so Lowenthal decided to swallow it. Okay, so he wants to swallow it. So that's one of the pathway. Swallow it so that it goes to your digestive tract and you get extra nutrients. Extra nutrients. Okay. All right. So if you don't want to swallow it, what will you do, Crystal? Oh, Crystal will say she wants to cough it out. She don't want to swallow. So cough it out. Okay. Or you want to sneeze it out also can. So there are three pathways. Either you swallow it, or you cough it out, or you sneeze it out. Cough it out or spit it out, okay? Cough it out, spit it out. Okay, spit or cough it out. Okay, or sneeze it. Okay, so that's what you're going to do. So that's so wonderful about the mucus as well as the cilia. So these are the function, right? Okay, so we have looked at the structure already overall, right? So now we move on to the next slide. You see that when I draw the epithelium layer here in the bronchus, I actually draw it as folded. See, I draw it as folded so that when you breathe in, right, the lumen can stretch. That means when it's folded, it can actually, the epithelium can stretch so that the lumen becomes bigger. Okay, so you also find that the bronchiole, the epithelium of bronchiole will also be folded one. Okay, but then I didn't draw folded here. It will also be folded so that when the air goes in, it can, the epithelium can stretch so that lumen becomes larger. Okay. So for gas exchange system, when the air enters our airways, it will start from trachea. So this is our gas exchange system, right? Starting from trachea, which is here, right? You can see that it is segmented. Later on, I will tell you what are those segments that you're looking at. They're actually the C-shaped cartilage ring. Can you see that? The C-shaped cartilage ring, okay? So it is not found in the entire length of the trachea. Can you see that? It's found at a certain distance, a certain length, alternately. You'll find it, okay? So trachea branch into two bronchi and then continue to branch into many. This is called segmented bronchioles. Sorry, segmented bronchus. And then bronchiole. So you don't worry about segmented bronchus, okay? So trachea to bronchus, bronchus to bronchiole, okay? And then bronchiole. So in the bronchiole, you see, finally it ends at terminal bronchiole. Terminal bronchiole means is the end, is the last part. The last part before you can see the alveoli. Like you go to airport, right? Before you fly, you have to go to the terminal, right? You got terminal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So before you fly, there's the last part that you touch the ground. After that, you go to the airplane and then you're going to fly already. So terminal bronchiole is the end of the bronchiole, the end of the tube before you will start to see the alveoli. So it's called the terminal, the end, okay, of the bronchiole before you see the alveoli. That means before the gaseous exchange will occur, because that's the purpose of the air, right? So what's supposed to do? It's supposed to enter our body. So where will it enter body? Alveoli. So that's why this part is called the terminal bronchiole before it will come into the alveoli where gaseous exchange will occur. Alveoli. Can you see? Yes. Okay. So then after terminal bronchiole is called the respiratory bronchiole already. Respiratory because this is where alveoli is connected to the alveoli, is connected directly to the bronchiole. So I'm going to draw to show you. So this is terminal bronchiole here, right? And then when it branches out, this is terminal bronchiole. When it branches out, suddenly there's an alveolus that's connected to the tube. Okay, and then suddenly there's another alveolus that's connected to the tube like this. So therefore, in this, along this tube, right, which is still the bronchiole, gaseous exchange can occur here and here. But these two are actually alveoli. So therefore, this tube is called the respiratory bronchiole. Why? Because gaseous exchange can occur here as well as here. So that's why this is called the respiratory bronchiole. Okay. Okay, so here what I want you to see is, you see this is an operation where it exposed the trachea, and you can see the C-shaped cartilage ring, right, in the anterior portion, which covered by the cartilage, right, segmented. It looks like a segment, right? Okay, so this is a C-shaped cartilage ring. And if you make a section through this area, you're going to see the C-shaped cartilage ring here. Okay, and the lumen is very, very wide, because this is the largest tube among the rest of the airways. This is the largest tube. Okay, so it's very, very big lumen. Now, this is what you will see when we make a section of the lung. So that means to say that when you section any part of the lung, you see this is trachea, right? Branches into two bronchi. So when you section any part of the lung, you will expect to be able to see the bronchus as well as the bronchiole and the alveoli. So what you can see in the lung is you can see the bronchus, bronchiole, and alveoli, depending on where you section the lung. So if I ask you to imagine the lung, right? Imagine the space in front of you. And this space is totally filled with alveoli, tiny little alveoli. And then apart from that, you have got the tube, which is bronchus and bronchioles. That is the lung structure. So therefore, over here, this is the section through the lungs. You can see that almost entire space is filled with many tiny little alveoli. So this is one alveolus. Can you see the wall is very, very thin, right? This is another alveolus here. Okay, another alveolus, right? Okay, so this is one alveolus here. This another alveolus, another one. So it's not complete, you see not? Okay, so you see this is the terminal bronchiole, and this is the respiratory bronchiole. It's a tube. It's still a tube, right? How do you know? Because this purple color layer is the epithelium, and then this red color layer is a smooth muscle, right? It's got epithelium and smooth muscle. So this is the bronchiole, right? And then you got alveolus that directly connect to the tube. You see the alveolus directly connected to where gaseous exchange can occur. So even though it's a tube, gaseous exchange can occur. So this is called respiratory bronchiole. So after that, it will go to alveolar duct. So AD stands for alveolar duct. Alveolar, hang on, alveolar duct. Now, what is a duct? Duct is a tube. Duct stands for alveolar. Duct stands for tube. Okay, tube. So alveolar duct means it's a tube that opens to the alveolus. So this is an alveolar duct here. It's quite wide. Where does it open to? It actually opens to alveolar sac. Can you see AS? That means I've got an alveolar duct opening to, now this is one alveolar sac, okay? And then it can open to another alveolar sac, and it can open to another alveolar sac. So it's opening, so this alveolar duct, this AD, alveolar duct, is opening to 3 alveolar sac. Each of these is an alveolar sac. Means it's a big bag, okay, alveolar sac. And each of the alveolar sac is made up of a few alveoli here. So this one alveoli, another one, another one. Every curve is one alveolus. Okay, So this is alveolar duct opening to alveolar sacs, and each alveolar sac contains a few alveoli. So it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 alveolus here. Okay. So you can see this whole thing is one alveolar sac, and inside one alveolar sac, there are many alveolus. It can be 1 here, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, 6, 7. So 7 alveoli in this particular alveolar sac. So this is another one here. 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, maybe 5 here, maybe 6 here, and it looks very big, right? And it may be connected to another alveolar sac here. Okay. All right, so now can you see this structure is very interesting, this one here. Now you see this one has got a lumen, but the lumen is red color. So most probably this is a blood vessel. And because the lumen is so big compared to the wall, so this is a vein. This is a vein. Okay. If you want to verify whether this is a vein, you have to zoom in to magnify it further to check the wall. Because all the blood vessels, right, the wall is actually made up of endothelial cell that is squamous. Squamous. So this is a typical structure for you to identify the blood vessel. Okay, you will look for the lumen contain blood, and then the endothelial cells are all squamous. So these are the two features I will look for when I want to identify whether it's a blood vessel. Okay, and then when I want to know whether it's artery and vein, what will you look at when you want to identify, distinguish between artery and vein? Hello?
Yeah, venous blood vessel.
Yeah, you can call this a venule because it's quite small. You can call it a venule. Okay. Yeah, Akila says a lumen diameter. So you want to identify whether it's artery or vein, you have to look at the diameter of the lumen versus the thickness of the wall. Okay, so you look at the diameter of the lumen versus the thickness of the wall. Okay, or thickness of the wall. Okay, or you also look at the diameter of the lumen versus the diameter of the entire vessel. Also can. All right. Okay, so let's move on. Now this is a higher power cutting through the bronchiole. Bronchiole. Okay, bronchus. No, this should be bronchus, not bronchiole. This is a bronchus. Bronchus. Why? Because never mind. It's okay. So what I want to look at is, now this is cutting through a bronchus, but you can also see a lot of alveoli because it's all in the lung, right? It's all in the lung. So the entire space of the lung is filled with a lot of alveoli plus the airway. So this airway here, this lumen here belongs to the bronchus. Okay. Now this is what? This is a blood vessel because in the lumen you can see not these are the red blood cells. The tiny little red dots are red blood cells, and the black colored dots are the nuclei of the white blood cell. So this is how you identify blood vessel. Whether it's artery or vein, then you have to give evidence. Why do you call it artery? Why do you call it a vein? If you say it's an artery, that means to say that the wall is quite thick and muscular. If you call it a vein, then you say that the lumen size is very large compared to the wall thickness. Okay? Now it labels here A, that means this is an artery or arterial, but it looks like more like a venule than an artery. Actually, for me, it looks more like a venule because the lumen is so big compared to the thickness of the wall. So for me, I will I will actually label this as the vein, as long as you can give evidence is correct already. Okay. Now I want you to see this special structure. You can see this structure here. This structure here. This structure, this not the blood vessel. These are the, actually I need to zoom in to check lah. For me, this one is the mucous gland. Okay, these are the mucous gland. Mucous gland. Mucous gland. Okay, mucous, C-O-U-S, mucous gland. Okay, mucous glands secrete mucus. The spelling of mucous gland, right, is M-U-C-O-U-S, whereas the mucus as secreted is M-U-C-U-S. So you have to check when you write your words. Okay. All right. So this is showing you a alveolar sac, an alveolar sac, okay, and then with many alveoli. And what is very prominent here, or what is very clear is, can you see the entire wall of the alveolar sac is actually filled with the capillary bed. You know this capillary bed? So the entire wall of the alveolus, all the alveoli, will have got a lot of capillary, because you know that capillary is when the blood vessel will branch out into tiny little blood vessels, so that all the cells of the tissue will be very close to capillary. So that will allow increased surface area for gaseous exchange, right? It will increase surface area for gaseous exchange between the capillary and the alveolus. So the entire alveoli will be covered with the capillary.